First, the coach goes and then follows the chief executive officer. There have been quotes, allegations, and there have been rebuttals, and the performances on field haven't been too inspiring either. Well, it might seem as just another year in Indian hockey, but so close to the Olympics, especially after the promise the teams, I must say, showed after the Tokyo Olympics. We, in a way, are back at square one. At least it feels like that. And so, with the administrative issues, with some of the accusations being made by the now former women's team coach Janneke Schopman and also the CEO Elena Norman, we, Amit and I, in today's Game Time, in this week's Game Time, are asking a very simple but a very important question. Should we fear for Indian hockey? Amit, should we?
Mihir, I think first of all, when it comes to Indian hockey, there is literally nothing simple. Na question, na issues. Nothing is simple about Indian hockey. Everything has more layers than we can possibly anticipate. And I'm sure you obviously are the perfect person to unravel all these here because you've seen way too many crests and troughs between Indian hockey. One day we are, bronze medalists at an Olympics. The women's team is fourth. Today, in the space of not even one proper Olympic cycle, the women's team has not even qualified. The men's team is it has its own sets of issues. You've lost your CEO who was there for 13 years. So I think dar ka mahal to hona hi chahiye. One of the things that Mr. Bholanath, the Secretary General of Indian Hockey, told you in his interview was Shanti hai, Shanti rehne dijiye. I don't know kahan Shanti hai, but as long as he thinks it is so I guess it is fine.
Right. So before we move ahead, it's important कि थोड़ा सा हम in the great words chronology समझिए. So it so happened that the new dispensation of Hockey India took charge a year and a half ago. The president is Dilip Tirki, who is a former India captain, a legend of the game. The Secretary General is Bholanath Singh. Non-hockey background, he comes from wrestling, claims to have been India's wrestling coach back in the day, some 20 years ago. They have come in and soon after, there have been reports of a divide in the way Hockey India functions. So, Elena Norman, the CEO who had been in India since 2011, she told the Press Trust of India that the Hockey India was divided in two factions. One was led by Bholanath Singh, the secretary and one of the directors of Hockey India. And the other side was Elena herself and Dilip Tirki. Now, what this did is create a very unsavory atmosphere. Dilip Tirki, in his letter to the board, wrote words, difficult working conditions. So that didn't really help the administrative side of it. Simultaneously, what happened is in 2022, after the new dispensation took over, that's when Janneke Schopman, the women's team coach, said that the conditions for her too started to deteriorate in terms of the support she got from Hockey India. Eventually, she claims that was one of the reasons why India did not win the gold medal in the women's hockey at the Asian Games. That, of course, would have helped them directly qualify for the Olympics. Since that did not happen, India had to play a qualifier. It was held in Ranchi, but India finished fourth outside the top three who would have gone for the Olympics. So, Indian women's hockey team that finished fourth at the Tokyo Olympics now missed the Paris Olympics. Two things have happened over here because of the administrative issue. The CEO, who was the key decision maker for Indian hockey in the last 13 years, responsible for every small decision that's been taken over this period, she has quit. Although there is a caveat which we'll come to later. And the coach of the women's hockey team too resigned, and she gave a scathing interview on the sidelines of the FIH Pro League, which took place in Rourkela and Bhubaneswar in February, where she had this to say about dealing with Hockey India and the working conditions that she had to face.
Very hard. Very hard. Because, I come from a culture where women are respected and are valued. I don't feel that here. From not very many people, and I do feel it also from others. I do feel it. I think the people working here on the ground are amazing from Hockey India. But I think it's so hard. And I think for them it's so hard. Because if I look at, the difference how men's coaches are treated between me and the men's coach or the girls and the men's team, just in general, and it's not, they never complain. And they work so hard. And I'm not saying it's, I don't know why, but if I shouldn't speak for them actually, so I won't speak for them. I love them. I think they work so hard. They do what I ask. They want to learn. They want to do new things. But for me personally, coming from the Netherlands, having worked in the USA, this country is extremely difficult as a woman. Coming from a culture where, yeah, you can have an opinion and it's valued for it, it's really hard.
Amit, first impressions, what do you make of the statement that Schopman has made regarding working in India?
Mihir, I think one of the things that she is talking about is how she was never taken seriously or she was respected, valued, which I think is something, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's a bit of a mixed bag for me, because on the one hand, Schopman is saying that, but then as Mr. Bholanath has raised this issue, that she could have raised this issue pretty much any time. But then to raise it after her job was already under threat because India did not qualify for the Olympics. When you raise it then kind of leave the door open for a lot of speculation as if, is that the right thing or not? Because you look at it this way. I understand, that there are things that she had asked for. Like she had asked for a psychologist, which I don't think she ever got. Simultaneously, on the men's side, there was a psychologist that they demanded and they were given. In fact, it was the 2011 World Cup winning Indian cricket team ka psychologist who was assigned to the hockey team. So there were those things. So
just before we move it, Amit, I mean, since you brought up the psychologist, it's important that for the sake of neutrality, we also put up what Hockey India Secretary General Bholanath said. And when we asked about the psychologist issue, he said that wasn't that the psychologist wasn't given to the women's team, but his words were कि जब ये men team को मिला तो उसको देखकर women's team आई और उन्होंने कहा कि हमें भी चाहिए psychologist. They came up with a name which he said wasn't as big as Paddy Upton, the 2011 World Cup winning psychologist that you referred to. And his defense is that they asked the psychologist to kind of reduce her fees and then they would reconsider it. But here the important point is that when it came to the men's team, Bholanath said that the rate weren't an issue. Money didn't stand in the way of performance. But I mean, clearly it wasn't the case that he felt with the women's team, although he said that the psychologist wasn't at the same level as Paddy Upton. Sorry, yeah, you can go ahead with what we were saying earlier.
Yeah, Mihir, absolutely. So one of the things is that the psychologist issue, like I said, in Indian hockey, nothing is as simple as it seems. Obviously, everything has not even two facets, multiple facets. We don't know whether the Indian women's hockey team not being given a psychologist was purely because they didn't think that Schopman's demands were not worthy of being, respected or not, or whether it was just a financial consideration thing. So it could have been either. But Mihir, I mean, apart from maybe looking away from a women's issue, we've also had Shod Marine, who was the coach who took India to the 4th place. And even he saw his stint ending very abruptly. Hockey India then raised a ruckus about him not returning a laptop of all things. Obviously, there were other issues that went in the background. But Mihir, this is something that we've seen over the years. Reputed coaches with a lot of pedigree have come to India. They've tried to make something out of the teams. There have been issues with players sometimes, same as what Schopman encountered with Rani Rampal, I guess. There have been obviously issues with then federations. But this whole Elena Norman thing is something that is unique because she was the first ever CEO that appointed by Hockey India. What is remarkable about her is that she came to India as just a marketing consultant, rose all the way to become the CEO, was running, the federation. And we know how patriarchal some of our federations can be. So for her to be running and now having to quit because of, a tug of war between two factions in the federation is also kind of in a way revealing for us, but we don't know how much to read into it, whether it is because of inherent sexism. Because if there is inherent sexism, how did Elena Norman kind of become the biggest decision maker in a sense for 13 years?
Right. An important point to be made here is that her resignation comes in middle of a court hearing. The Delhi High Court is hearing a case filed by former India captain Aslam Sher Khan. It started out as a case regarding the administrative issues in Hockey India, with Elena Norman and the former president Narendra Batra being at the center of the case. The accused, And now at this stage, it's reached where the Delhi High Court had ordered a forensic audit into the accounts of Hockey India. They came up with a huge report. It was done by a private audit firm, one of the top 4-5 firms in the world. The court then appointed a former sports secretary, Njeti Srinivas, to summarize the report. And the summary is right now submitted to the court, and it's supposed to be heard. The case was supposed to be heard in February 12, but it was adjourned and it will now be heard in April. So the timing of her resignation should also be seen in this context and not just the factionalism within Hockey India, which it's not a new thing in sport, but it's also one of the unfortunate parts of Indian sports administration.
Absolutely, Mir. And I know I mentioned only that she came to India as a marketing consultant, ended up reaching all the way to CEO. But what was even more remarkable during her stint was that Indian hockey kind of got back on track. I think a couple of Olympics ago, the Indian women's hockey team was not even qualifying for the Olympics itself. Now we've gone back to that, I guess. The men's hockey team had never actually looked like contenders at winning a medal at the Olympics after, Moscow 1980. And we saw that cycle kind of end in Tokyo. So we've had remarkable success. Now the problem is the person that has to replace Elena, we've still not figured that out. She's quit. We are apparently being promised a very big name. Now we're not just looking at replacing the CEO, we are also looking to replace the women's coach and maybe, a psychologist as well, because that is also one of the things missing. But Mihir, what is your biggest takeaway? Because you've covered hockey for so long. As things stand, what is maybe the most alarming thing? And do you see any blowback from all of that is happening in the background, in the administrative front, on the preparations of the Indian men's team, which has actually qualified for Paris Olympics, and it's coming in less than maybe 150 days?
Yeah, so I'll try not to be very long and not ramble on. So two aspects. The last thing that you asked first about the men's team, I don't think all of this will immediately impact the men's team. Now, having seen them in Rourkela for the Pro League, they look like a team that has a solid plan in terms of how they'll play at the Olympics. So that bit is interesting. Whether they land on the podium is something that, none of us will be able to predict. But now, the men's team, they will be in camp for this month. In April, they are going to travel to Australia for a test series. In May, they'll be doing a whole European tour where they'll be playing Pro League matches in England, I think in Belgium. And then in June, they'll be headed to the Netherlands for another test series before the Olympic Games in July. So their program is pretty much set. They have Paddy Upton traveling with them and who'll be accompanying them at the Paris Olympics as well. So their support staff is pretty strong. You tick every box over there. So immediately, I don't think there is a concern for the men's team. But the reason, I try not to sound or make it look thoda sa exaggerated, Amit, but the reason why I say should we fear for Indian hockey is because whatever the things, there are pros and cons over here both. Say, for example, with Elena Norman as the CEO, the pros first. She came, like you said, in 2011. She joined the federation back then. And after that, we've seen a decade of stability in Indian hockey, which wasn't the case ever. At least not this much stability when it comes to administration. You saw the lives of players getting transformed. They started to get paid decent money in terms of their rewards, cash rewards, etc. The standard of living at the camps while they traveled for competitions, that improved drastically. We'll try to put up a link of the idea exchange with Srijesh where he talks about this elaborately. So that happened. India became a destination for world hockey since 2013. Every year, international tournament has been held in India. That includes 2 senior World Cups, 2 junior World Cups and whatnot. So that's happened. The Hockey India League started, got discontinued, and it's about to be revived again either the last week of December or January. So that's another big thing that happened in these last 10 years. So the reason why India finished on podium at Tokyo, even though it was a bronze medal, is because of the last 10, 12 years of efforts, or 10 years precisely from 2011 when Norman took over to 2021 when India won the medal. The other side to it was that her way of functioning wasn't always appreciated. The biggest blot, so to say, in all these years was when she abused Manpreet Singh during the 2018 World Cup. Manpreet Singh was the captain of the Indian team, and she abused and told her
Which Mihir is the man with the most power in Indian hockey at some point, other than maybe Batra at that stage.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Then during a home World Cup, to abuse and tell the captain of Indian team to leave a particular area. I mean, so happened that Manpreet was he kind of strayed into a VIP lounge of the stadium to meet and greet with the former captains. And Elena Norman apparently did not like that and used abusive language. Manpreet, of course, denied all of this. Elena has, of course, denied all of this. But then there have been too many bystanders who saw this. There were too many witnesses who say that this happened. And so that's one of the downsides to her way of functioning. I mean, it's got results. It revived Indian hockey. But yeah, there are pros and cons. And now, we are entering a period of uncertainty. We don't know what happens with the women's team in terms of the coach and plan ahead. And the administrative structure at Hockey India, which looked robust, it's suddenly kind of wobbly right now. So there is a decision-making vacuum because Dilip Tirki is focused on his Lok Sabha elections. He is with the BJD in Orissa. And Bholanath Singh, like we discussed, isn't from a hockey background. So he'll have to rely on someone with knowledge. And we don't know if there is anyone with the same level of knowledge right now in Hockey India. So that's my long answer to your question.
So speaking of long answers, let's try and cut it with some short answers. Mihir had a very incredible interview with Bholanath Singh himself. I found it very funny where he asked Mr. Bholanath Singh about the allegations that were being leveled against him about the factionalism in Indian hockey. And he straight up denies it. He says that, there is no truth, there is no issues in Indian hockey. So when Mihir asks him, so what exactly is the truth then? Mr. Bholanath Singh says, now is not the right time for it. The truth will be revealed when the time is right. Abhi shanti hai, shanti bane rehne dijiye. So it was a very funny Q&A of sorts where he also goes ahead and I think at some points he takes umbrage at the fact that Mihir is trying to suggest that, he does not have any pedigree to be, taking decisions for Indian hockey. And he's like, who do you think? I have been a coach of the Indian national wrestling team back in, I think, 2002, 2003, which is 20 years back, 2 decades back. He was the coach of a Indian wrestling team at, I don't know what tournament that was. Mihir, what stood out in that interview? Mihir, first question I need to ask you is, when we posted this on social media, a lot of people replied there asking, how did the reporter keep a straight face when he was being given these answers? Because they were clearly very funny answers, delivered with a straight face, really pissed off expression. So Mihir, tell us what went behind the scenes of this interview.
No, so to be honest, I was genuinely curious. I mean, at that point, it didn't look to me as if this was funny or whatever. I mean, it still isn't because it's a very serious issue, but he came across as very genuine in his answers because he wasn't being sarcastic or whatever. So the whole context to this bit that you're saying, referring to about the wrestling bit, was that I asked him about the women's team coach Janneke Schopman and whether he wanted her out after the Asian Games. And he said, yes, I wanted her out and blah, blah, blah. He said that I'd warned everyone at Hockey India that if she stays as the coach, we won't qualify at the Olympics. That happened. Then in the follow-up, I just asked him that the fact that you're saying that was it based on any review? Was it a case where Hockey India had conducted a performance review which led you to believe this? And he said, no, I mean, even I am a coach and I understand coaching, I understand the systems. And at that point, I genuinely thought that he must have been a player or a coach or a hockey coach. So I just asked him that, I'm sorry, I didn't know that you were a coach. I mean, what sport, what did you coach? And he was like, Arey, who do you think I am? Aapko kaun lagta hai? Main kya hoon? Main bhi coach hoon, main bhi India coach hoon. So then I asked him which sport. And he said wrestling. And that's when it kind of I was slightly taken aback and I said, but wrestling and you're taking decisions in hockey. And then he said that, look, eventually sport is sport and the systems are same. The basic things all remain the same. And I mean, it's commentary on the Indian sports administration in a way, to be honest. And we hope that, he takes the right decisions because Indian hockey is at a very critical juncture. But yeah, let's see what happens here. I mean, I won't deny it's kind of bizarre, this whole thing.
Well, bizarre has been the status quo of Indian hockey for the long time. For the last few years, maybe it seemed that we were getting out of that stage where things were based on meritocracy, things were based on logic. What the next few months bring for Indian hockey is I mean, your guess is as good as ours. Mihir, do you have any parting thoughts before we end this conversation?
No, I think we've spoken enough.
But Veer, just to put you on the spot, because I mean, जैसे आपने Mr. Bolana जी को थोड़ा spot पे डाल दिया था, I want to ask you.
मैंने wrestling coach नहीं किया यार.
तो कुछ तो मतलब you wrestled at some point और कुछ बैडमिंटन तो खेला होगा ना? तो I mean, obviously you are qualified enough to answer this question. At Paris Olympics, do you see the Indian men's hockey team winning a medal, not winning a medal? Where do you see them? It's time for your prediction to end this.
It's a very simple thing. India has to start beating the top 2-3 sides. I mean, if you're looking, like Craig Fulton, the coach, said, right, if you're going to look at Australia as world number 6, that's pointless. India has to beat consistently the teams like Australia, Netherlands and Belgium. We've beaten Germany, we've beaten the other teams. So it has to be Australia, Belgium and Netherlands. These 3 teams, they look solid. Australia, I mean, they're conceding a lot of goals, but they're scoring more than that. So they always will be contenders. Netherlands is a team that India, I mean, it was crazy that when India defeated Netherlands in shootouts at Bhubaneswar, it was the first time a player like Hardik Singh, who's been like the nerve center of Indian team, he beat Netherlands the first time in his career. And technically it was just a draw and not a win. But still, so if India can manage that, a podium finish isn't kind of, out of their sight, but it will take some doing. This team is solid. They're playing very nicely. I won't say a podium finish, but I would be disappointed that if they don't reach the semi-finals at least.
Well, on that ambiguously positive, semi-positive note, I guess, we are going to end this conversation. Thank you for listening. This is me, Amit Kamath, and my co-host Mihir Vasavda saying goodbye. If you have any thoughts about what is going wrong or what is going right with Indian hockey, please do text, tweet at us or send us an email. Our email IDs are readily available on the internet. So yeah, thank you so much. Bye. Thank you for listening.
You were listening to Express Sports by the Indian Express. This week's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by me, Shashank Bhargava. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.